Hey, speaking of prisoners, this should be an interesting Valentine's Day at the White House. For instance, will Donald Trump get flowers from Vladimir Putin? We don't know. And what about his wife, Melania? Will they spend the night together, or will she remain trapped like Rapunzel at their apartment in New York? You know, Melania Trump has a new line of greeting cards. They carry these now at CVS. They're interesting, actually. I've not seen any. Happy Valentine's Day. Open out, saving.
What begins as harmless late-night banter suddenly explodes into a full-scale spotlight, aimed straight at America's most headline-hungry marriage. The jokes hit harder, the crowd laughs louder, and somewhere between the sarcasm and the smirks, the real-life tension starts leaking through the cracks. Jimmy Kimmel and Alec Baldwin don't just poke fun, they tear the whole curtain down. And once it starts unraveling, the exposure gets messy fast. Nobody escapes. Nobody walks away clean.
It's also sweet that even in the middle of the biggest sex scandal in the history of the American presidency, he takes precious time on the toilet to post about our show. Keep saying we have bad ratings, and you should listen to him, because if anyone knows about bad ratings, it's that guy.
I asked President Xi if they had a problem in China, but he said, no, me no like. Does better with the voice, I think, I must say.
China, president of China.
If you're enjoying the video, make sure to subscribe, trust me. It helps way more than you'd expect. The moment Jimmy Kimmel turned his late-night scalpel toward Trump's marriage, the whole studio shifted. Cozy warmth evaporated, replaced by that cold, surgical quiet that only shows up when someone is about to be politely but thoroughly taken apart on national television. No shouting, no theatrics. Just that calm, precise tension that warns everyone. This is about to get uncomfortable.
From the moment Donald and I met, there was an undeniable spark. There was something magnetic about him. His confidence, his charm, his humor, his vision.
The one thing he wasn't lying about was that.
She's the one with the bad temperament. She's always screaming. She's constantly lying. Her hair is crazy. Her face is completely orange, except around the eyes where it's white. And when she stops talking, her mouth looks like a tiny little butthole.
The jokes floated in casually, disguised as harmless commentary. But each one struck with the precision of a surgeon who already knows exactly where the nerves are exposed. Trump's marriage, usually padded with glossy photos and carefully staged affection, was suddenly being handled not like a fairy tale, but like an overhyped product rollout that never quite shut down.
6 months when they're indicted for crypto fraud, he'll say he never met them. Uncle Scam also treated the gathered crowd to a fairy tale about how low the price of food is now since he took office.
Walmart announced that the cost of their standard Thanksgiving meal is 25% lower. The price of Thanksgiving turkey is down 33% from its Biden-era highs. Potatoes are down 13%, and gasoline will soon be hovering around $2 a gallon.
Yeah. Just like your weight is hovering around 175.
Kimmel didn't accuse anyone of anything. He just held up a montage of reality and let the silence between each clip speak for itself. The smile that never quite reached the eyes. The way every tender moment lined up perfectly with whatever political storm was brewing that week. Romance on demand. Unity by appointment. The audience laughed at first, then slowly realized exactly what they were laughing at.
As is tradition, except for 4 years ago when Trump refused to do it, the outgoing first couple welcomed the incoming president and first lady, which was interesting to watch. Trump actually got involved in Melania's outfit for this ceremony. A lot of people are talking about it. He told her he thought it would be super hot if she dressed like a goth Al Capone. And so she did. We found Carmen Sandiego.
Because once you start looking at a relationship through choreography instead of chemistry, everything shifts. Affection starts to feel rehearsed. Proximity feels negotiated. Even the smiles take on that polished showroom shine, beautiful, flawless, and completely untouched by fingerprints. Kimmel's real magic was that it never came across as an attack. It felt like harmless curiosity. That just happened to unravel a narrative polished for years. He wandered through their public moments like a tourist strolling through a museum of perfectly frozen poses. Always together for the cameras, yet somehow never sharing the same emotional climate. Two people in the same frame, but not the same weather. Then Alec Baldwin stepped in, aiming at the same target but with a different kind of precision satire, disguised as velvet-trapped force. His brilliance wasn't in mockery. It was in reflection. He didn't have to invent tension, he simply magnified what already existed until nobody could pretend it wasn't there. The polite distance, the assigned roles, the way affection only bloomed when a camera was watching. It stopped looking like a marriage and started feeling more like a carefully managed, long-term press partnership, two professionals sharing a spotlight rather than a life. Nat.
Lost count now of how many times the president has demanded I be pulled off the air. I mean, talk about a snowflake, this guy. Every 5 weeks, he flips out and wants me fired. If you got this many threats from a neighbor, you'd have no problem getting a restraining order. The judge would be like, yeah, it sounds like the guy's nuts. Boom. It's disturbing. You know, and you've done this before. You tried to get me fired in September. It didn't work. Mr. President, I admire your tenacity. If you're watching tonight, which I presume you are, how about this? I'll go when you go.
What? Both men managed without planning, without comparing notes, was stripping away the same illusion from two completely different angles. Kimmel exposed the choreography with timing. Baldwin exposed the machinery with caricature. Different weapons, same impact. Suddenly, the marriage didn't look romantic. It looked operational. Each laugh from the audience came with that. Slow burn aftershock, the moment humor flips into recognition. Because everyone has seen this dynamic somewhere before. The picture-perfect couples online. The ones who never argue in public. The ones whose affection feels sanitized, almost sterile. Love performed, not lived. Intimacy without fingerprints. The relationship seemed to power up exactly when the storyline demanded it, then fade quietly into the background as soon as the crisis cycle shifted. Affection on a schedule, connection with a posting calendar. And neither Kimmel nor Baldwin ever had to question whether the couple loved each other. That would have been blunt, messy, too obvious. Instead, they aimed at something deeper. Was the marriage still running on human instinct, or had it morphed into something algorithmic, reacting not to emotion but to public pressure? More coming when you're ready.
My wife will tell you, I never imitated him or had anything to do with it. Lauren called me and said, you want to do this? And I go, no, I don't want to be Trump on TV. And because any time you have any kind of mimicry, it's usually somebody that you appreciate. You have some appreciation.
Right.
So they said to me, Trump, and I didn't hate Trump. I just said, I don't want to do that. And Tina and Lauren kind of pushed me, and I do it. And you've seen SNL. And the moment the stage manager takes me to my mark for the first dress rehearsal at 8 o'clock, I had no idea what I was going to do.
Really?
I mean, literally, the moment I walked out there, I just said to myself, eyebrow up. I tried to stick my face out, my mouth out. I was in the makeup room, they're putting my wig on, and it was like a scene from like a mental hospital.
And that's where the sting really settled in. Because nothing feels more unsettling than realizing a relationship might exist more for optics than for refuge. Not as a sanctuary, not as a shared emotional world, but as a strategic shield built to absorb impact and deflect turbulence. Kimmel casually pointed out how rarely genuine warmth showed up between them. How the spontaneous moments always seemed a half-second out of sync. Two people arriving together, yet emotionally parking in different spaces, physically present, but tuned to different frequencies. Baldwin, meanwhile, zeroed in on the power imbalance humming beneath the surface. And the most brutal part? He didn't have to exaggerate anything. Every cue, every stiff pause, every oddly timed photo op, they were all already public. The comedy didn't reveal secrets. It simply rearranged the existing pieces of reality into a pattern the audience could suddenly recognize. The fairy tale didn't shatter in some dramatic explosion. It just quietly reclassified itself from romance to case study. Now,
I'd like to start by answering the question that's on everyone's mind. Yes, this is real life. This is really happening. On January 20th, I, Donald J. Trump, will become the 45th President of the United States. And then 2 months later, Mike Pence will become the 46th. I am so excited to live in the White House. I'm even going to have a little pet, like all the presidents do. Bill Clinton had socks, Barack Obama had Bo, and I'll have Paul Ryan. I mean, I'm not gay, but I cannot wait to give it to that man for 4 years.
as the satire sharpened, the jokes shifted from surface-level symptoms to the architecture beneath them. This wasn't about affection fading, it was about affection being repurposed. The marriage no longer operated as an intimate bond. It functioned like a strategic asset, a firewall, a buffer, a stabilizing headline machine. The audience laughed because it was funny, then went quiet because it was true. Kimmel's timing made the critique feel harmless at first. Baldwin's delivery made it feel ridiculous. And together, they landed on the same uncomfortable reality. The relationship didn't vanish when love softened. It simply rebranded. Even the fashion choices became part of the punchline. Coordinated outfits that signaled strategy instead of spontaneity. Looks that didn't whisper closeness but broadcast messaging. The marriage dressed like it had its own boardroom agenda. Baldwin pushed this further with theatrical flair, turning subtle cues into operatic The gestures became bigger, the posture stiffer, the emotional distance almost cinematic. In the act of stretching the dynamic, he accidentally clarified it. Because sometimes the truth only becomes visible once it's nudged just past realism.
Hey guys, who is excited for my inauguration day? Yes, thank you to those people over there who I definitely did not pay to do that. And we have got some of the biggest performers in the world lined up. Hold on to your tits and bits because we have got 3 doors down. Also, from America's Got Talent, we've got Jackie What's-Her-Face. And best of all, we've got the one rockette with the least money in her savings. We've also got some huge A-list actors coming like Angelina Jolie, Ryan Gosling, and Jennifer Lawrence. They will all be at my inauguration.
Kimmel, meanwhile, kept circling back to the same point. The timing. Always the timing. How displays of unity spiked whenever legal storms rolled in. How public tenderness conveniently blossomed right on cue, the moment political pressure hit its peak. It wasn't that the affection was fake, just scheduled. And scheduled affection never feels organic. The audience didn't laugh because the marriage looked broken. They laughed because it looked managed. There's a difference. Broken things fall apart. Managed things stay intact long after they've stopped functioning the way they were meant to. As the monologues and impressions spread online, the tone shifted from comedy to quiet agreement to recognition that the relationship had drifted out of emotional reality and into symbolic utility. Together not because of intimacy, but because together had become part of the brand. Architecture. Kimmel's humor framed it like a slow-motion ballet of obligation. Baldwin framed it like a farce of power and performance. But both pointed to the same conclusion. This wasn't a traditional marriage anymore. It was a working alliance. And alliances don't run on romance, they run on upkeep.net.
The mass deportations Trump promised are underway. Large-scale raids on undocumented immigrants started today, which means Melania is hiding in her bedroom for 2 reasons now. Yesterday, the president signed an order to lift all government DEI requirements and to put all federal employees who are working on DEI-related initiatives on immediate leave. Donald Trump won't be satisfied until his administration is as white as the chiclets his son calls teeth. But he will not tolerate DEI.
By the time the laughter faded, the illusion of a traditional love story had quietly stepped aside. In its place stood something colder, steadier, and far more durable, a partnership engineered to survive scandal, manage optics, and endure constant public surveillance. Not a relationship that burned with passion, but one that refused to collapse. The real exposure wasn't emotional. It was structural. The audience wasn't shown heartbreak or betrayal. They weren't asked to judge private details. Most people never know those anyway. But everyone recognizes when something starts. Functioning like a machine, the laughter carried a different weight near the end. Not because the joke stopped being funny, but because the picture became too clear to ignore. This wasn't the quiet drift of 2 ordinary people growing apart. It was the calcification of 2 individuals settling so deeply into their assigned roles that intimacy simply became unnecessary. And in that sterile transformation, the marriage didn't die, it adapted. It became resistant to scandal, resistant to gossip, resistant to emotional volatility. A structure held together not by affection, but by optics. Kimmel never said it outright. Baldwin never stamped it with a label. They just laid out the pieces, timing, posture, public patterns, and trusted the audience to assemble the shape themselves. The genius was in everything they didn't say.
President Xi, I said, "Do you have a drug problem?" "No, no, no. We give death penalty to people that sell drugs." End of problem.
So I'm going to sign these papers for emergency, and then I'll immediately be sued, and the ruling will not go in my favor, and then I'll end up in the Supreme Court, and then I'll call my buddy Kavanaugh, and I'll say it's time to repay the Donnie, and he'll say, "New phone, who dis?"
And we will then be sued, and they will sue us in the Ninth Circuit, and then we'll get another bad rule.
They never called it fake. They never called it loveless. They never accused anyone of deception. Instead, through timing, exaggeration, and surgical observation, they showed that the marriage now operated less like a bond and more like a protocol. Protocols don't feel they execute by the time the final laughs faded. The audience had witnessed an entire relationship shift from fairy tale to infrastructure without a single dramatic reveal. No scandal. No betrayal. Just the slow, creeping realization that the story they had followed for years was no longer a romance. It was a strategy that had learned how to smile, and perhaps the cruelest part of all, how calmly that truth landed. No explosions, no fallout. Just a quiet, uncomfortable clarity. The couple would continue to appear. The smiles would continue. Hands would link on cue. Pause for cameras. Exit the performance unfolded with the steady precision of a metronome immune to emotional variation. Once you notice that rhythm, you see it everywhere. At rallies, ceremonies, even moments meant to feel spontaneous, all arriving. What made the exposure linger wasn't Shakit, was how undramatic it all felt. No secret lovers, no whispered scandals, no cinematic betrayals. Just the quiet truth. The relationship no longer required belief to function. It only required participation.
They've got their hand up, but they suck, so not them. ABC sucks too, but at least they have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We love the S.H.I.E.L.D. Don't we? We love the S.H.I.E.L.D.
Not NBC. I like ABC a little bit more, not much.
Do you feel like enough progress has been made in the talks with China?
Look, you're asking the wrong guy. Because I freaking love tariffs.
Well, you know, you're talking to the wrong person because I happen to like tariffs.
Chuck Schumer is going to say, and I'm not going to do the voice. He'll say something like, "Oy vey." You know what I'm going to do the voice? "Oy vey, what are you, Michiganer?"
Schumer's going to stand up and say, "Oh, it should have been better."
Kimmel's humor left it there on the table, like a sealed envelope no one dared open. Baldwin's theatrical edge shook the table hard enough for the contents to spill out on their own. Together, they revealed something stranger than chaos, stability without warmth. A marriage that doesn't burn also doesn't explode. It simply hums. And that hum is constant. The low, steady vibration of a partnership designed to survive optics. It's not emotions. It doesn't falter under criticism because criticism is part of the environment it was built to thrive in. It doesn't buckle under pressure because pressure is its natural habitat. The irony. That makes the relationship almost indestructible. Not romantic strength that's invulnerable because it has evolved past vulnerability. They didn't uncover a scandal. They revealed a business model wearing a wedding ring. The story doesn't climax with a breakup, a feud, or a confession. It continues exactly as it always has. Photos will keep appearing. Appearances will stay coordinated. Hands will meet when symbolism demands it. But now the audience sees the wiring behind the wall.